Welcome back to Six String Philosophy. In this episode, we'll be taking on a very special song and dedicating this episode also to the folks in Jamaica who are struggling through Hurricane Melissa presently. And this is a song called The Eye by Brandi Carlile. And so this is one that's near and dear to me. Been wanting to learn this song probably since about 2015 when it first came out. I recall taking a shot at it and playing it in open, without a capo. And I remember hearing it like, who the heck is writing a song in F sharp, which is what key it's in? And so I remember like trying to fumble around and be like, well, how do I get that? Wasn't quite the same. But once you throw the capo on, it's one of those tunes where that's like the immediate boom answer right there. All right, and then it's going to make the whole rest of the song is going to be in very conventional grips. So if you know your basic chords, C chord, F chord, G, and A minor, you're in. Okay, there's one little move that you have to know here, and we'll talk all about Brandi and the lyrics and all the rest of with this song after the lesson. But let's get right down to it right now. Okay, so here's the grip, and this is what you got to kind of accomplish. You're going to set up as if you're playing a C major chord, just like that. And the whole time, these two fingers are going to freeze. Your pointer and your ring finger are going to freeze right where they are. And then you're going to, for the rest of this, you're going to be fretting as if you were playing a C chord, right? Except now put your pinky down right underneath the ring, and then drop your middle finger down. So essentially, what you're playing here is this little staircase: 1 on the B string, 2 on the G string, 3 on the D string, except you're accomplishing that by putting the pinky there instead of the ring finger, because you're going to want that in the bass, and I'll show you why. So here goes. So this is sort of the movement. So you're going to be taking these two fingers, this pinky and this middle, and then removing the pinky and moving the middle up to the D string. So here we go. So that real chimey note is on the B string, and then the note beneath that is that second fret on the G string, and then open G. You fall back to that C chord shape behind it. So you set it up with that special grip where the pinky is right underneath your ring finger, and that note is only being used like kind of to harmonize with its octave right there. So those dudes are going to stay frozen just like that. And it's important that you keep that open G ringing in the background. Creates a cool little drone. And then after you do that 3 times, it's G, A7 or A, and then this F shape, and then I pop that E behind it, and then resolve to that note, and then back to that move. And then for the rest of the song, for the verses, it does the same move as the intro in that G, A minor, F, but then return to the C. And that's happening pretty quickly. So for a song that's laid back and in the pocket and just kind of vamping back and forth, it does have that kind of like deceptively fast little chord switch. And there's 2 other moves just like that. So Tim Henceroth, hats off to the Henceroth twins, my Bold brothers, who wrote this tune along with Brandi, and their vocal harmonies that's a whole other story. We'll get to that later. But anyway, so that's most of your tune. Now, after you go through that verse both times, the last little part of each verse has a lift. So it goes through that, and And then it goes, before it moves on to the B section, the vocal kind of lifts up with it, and you hit that G chord. That's the transition. And then you move into that pre-chorus, whatever you want to call it. Wrapped your love around me like a chain, but I never was afraid that it would die. And then a big bass note here, leading tone. So after that G, so that what you're doing there is you're playing the F, and then to a C. And you may wish to fret this with a G in the bass, so to speak, a virtual G in the bass. And then back to that F. Likewise. You can do that too. And then back to the G. Then that leading tone here right before the C. Just one fret south of that C. And then you move into the you can dance in a, and then on the hurrah part of Hurricane, it's a quick F and then to the A. So I kind of do it as a downstroke, upstroke. And then you stay on that A minor. But only if you're standing in. On the in, I would do the G, the I. So do that part again. Wrap your love around me like a chain, but I never was afraid that it would die. You can dance in a hurricane, but only if you're standing in the eye. There you have it. That's the majority of the song. The only difference would be the last verse. There's that little spot where it kind of doubles back, but there's no new chords. You can just kind of listen to it and work your way through those pieces there. There's times when it'll do a double chorus. There's a musical break, which is the exact same thing as the introduction, so you can put it together. I mean, definitely do some close listening on it. Blue Jay. Outside the window there. Talk quickly about the lyric of the song, and it's cool. What I think is really neat about this one is that it's a song it's called The Eye, not the Hurricane. Okay, and so the focus here is on that, here comes a science teacher, nerd out moment. But when you think about a hurricane, it's a low pressure event, all right? And the eye of the hurricane, what's special about it is that's a high pressure center. It's a place where it's calm, it's cool, clear, and dry. You go just outside of that eye. So in the eye itself, which could be 30 miles wide, there'll be birds chirping, everybody's happy. There's no even inkling of the fact that there's a storm. But just outside of that eye, when you leave that, you enter into the chaos of the eye wall, which is the strongest part of it. And in the case, Hurricane Melissa, that's right now, people who are hunkered down and dealing with that in Jamaica, getting hit with 160 mile an hour sustained winds, and that's just, kind of capture that one idea as an analogy, that when you leave the eye, you enter into the chaos. And sort of embracing the fact that the chaos is around you and staying connected to those who are counting on you. I think that's kind of like what the essence of the eye means to me. And I love the fact that Brandi doesn't go to the well for all these other, if it was me, I would be like, all right, now I'll talk about the rising tide and the raging winds. That would be my inclination, which would be a very cliche, probably way of writing a song that's about a hurricane. She doesn't return to it. It's that one simple mention, and there's no other, meteorology tropes in the rest of the tune, which I think is pretty cool. The rest of it, she makes it open enough where she talks about people leaving, the sound of a closing door. Did you think the bottle would ever ease your pain? You might make it further if you learn to stay. So it's all about the idea of you can dance inside of that eye. You can be there and have that peace if you stay. And many of us, have a lot to learn from that. I mean, it's philosophically, that's whether that means staying with a project or staying with a person or staying with your family or your friends or sticking with people, through troubled times, is where, you not only survive, but that's where some of the most special moments in life occur. The analogy of the chain is also one that she doesn't overdo, because it doesn't feel overwritten. It feels like a song that's written from the heart. The last little piece of this would be, Brandi Carlile's career quickly. I tuned in right as this song was breaking, and that's not the beginning of her career. I learned that she had 3 other albums first, had a whole other record deal. And so there's other material out there, but this is the one that kind of I think hooked a lot of us back in 2015. She grew up in Seattle, and one of the stories which I thought was interesting, I've heard her tell in interviews, is that she was looking to break in, and there was a coffee house that I guess didn't do a lot of business on Sunday nights. So she's talked to the manager, and she goes, "Look, I'm going to bring my band in here. I noticed you guys don't have a crowd on Sundays. We're going to play for free. And if we start to bring in a crowd and it starts to be good for business, you'll pass at that point." And so that little kind of loss leading, I think they call that in the business world. I've heard stories like that before about people like, I think, Bon Jovi, who worked in a recording studio and swept the place in exchange for studio time. One of my great memories of live music is my wife and I went to go see Brandi at the Beacon Theater in New York, and it was a great show. But there was a certain moment, I think it was during this song, if I'm not mistaken, where she said, "Hey, you know what? These old theaters, these are like cathedrals of sound. They're made to be acoustically perfect." She said, "Let's try something." And she stepped back from it. She said, "We're going to not use the microphones. We're not going to use the amps. We're going to step away. We're going to step, actually closer to the crowd." And they sang the song to the audience without any amplification. And I'll never forget that. It was almost like somebody was standing right beside you and singing and playing it acoustically, and it was just gorgeous. It was such a cool moment. So in closing, I would say check out her catalog. One other little special footnote is that she, growing up, she had artists that she was inspired by, like Elton John and Joni Mitchell, and her career kind of came full circle to the point where recently she recorded an album with Elton John, and they're buddies. And she also befriended Joni Mitchell, and through, I guess, little jam sessions that they used to have, or open mics at Joni Mitchell's apartment or house or whatever, after Joni had some serious illness and basically thought she was never going to sing again, Brandi Carlile is credited partially with building Joni's confidence to the point where she would sing in front of her friends, and then eventually sang at the Grammys. And I was very moving seeing her, seeing Joni Mitchell sing both sides now at the Grammys was pretty beautiful moment. So if you have Brandi Carlile songs that you love, talk about them in the comments. If you have great experience that you had at concerts, I'd love to hear about that too. And I hope you had fun, and I'll see you on the next one.